So the first thing I think I should say is that I am not a doctor, I'm not an expert, and everything I say in this or any other video regarding the subject of heart attacks or stents or surgery or anything is just my personal experience. Just as a point of reference, but really just a personal experience thing. So the thing is, after I had a heart attack and had the stents put in, which maybe I'll go into a little bit later, there was nothing online that I could find very easily, certainly not on YouTube, with people that were sharing their experiences. I mean, maybe there is now. It's 3 years ago since I had my heart attack, but I was, quite shocked and a bit worried. And it would have been nice to find other people that have had similar situations and, to share their experience with the rest of us. So that's what I would like to do here. But like I say, everybody's different. So take everything with a pinch of salt. So, well, basically, I was 45 when I had the heart attack. I would like to say I was in relatively good shape. I'm not overweight. I do exercise every day and I eat relatively healthily. Everything's relative, of course. I suppose the one thing I should state is that there is a history of heart disease in my family on my dad's side. He has a heart condition, but he hasn't had stents put in. He just takes medication. But 2 of his brothers died of heart disease when they were quite young, perhaps because they, being Irish and living in the countryside and not being a big fan of doctors, maybe they didn't take the medication they were prescribed, but in any case, I can't speak too much about that. It's a bit before I knew much about it. So my, briefly, maybe I'll do another video on the actual heart attack itself, but my heart attack was when I was playing tennis on my own. It's a bit tricky playing tennis, but let's say I was practicing my serve, and I just been playing against the wall for maybe an hour. I think I'd also been to the gym before that, all in the same place, and then I was just there practicing my serve. But I wasn't doing anything that I hadn't done before. But I wasn't completely out of breath or anything like that. And all of a sudden, I had a pain in my chest, but it wasn't on the left or the right. It was down the centre, and it wasn't a digging or a knife type pain, stabbing pain rather. It was more like an acid reflux pain. And because I have what's called a hiatus hernia, which I don't quite understand exactly what it is and the difference between acid reflux and all the other things. But anyway, the results of that are basically that you get a pain in your stomach as if you've got maybe trapped air or acid coming up, and the pain comes here. The difference is that this pain was a little bit stronger, but not that much stronger, and it didn't go away. But this video isn't really about heart attack. The point is, I had a heart attack. It went on for hours because at the hospital they didn't know it was a heart attack, even though I told them that I had a history of heart disease in the family, but they weren't sure. And eventually they went inside at about 11 o'clock at night and found that 2 arteries were pretty well clogged. Normally they give you a percentage, so if you have had this, if you have had a heart attack, because you can have stents placed without having a heart attack just because they view you as a high risk case. So in my case, the two of the arteries were pretty much blocked. Normally they will give you a percentage, they'll say, well, 70% blocked, 80% blocked, 90%. In my case, unfortunately, I'd be curious to know, they didn't specify the percentage, but one of them was pretty well blocked, and the other one was blocked. Initially, I was told that well, they put the stents, or 2 or 3 stents, in one of the arteries, and then I was told that the other one they would treat with medication. Now, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but I'm not sure how you treat a blocked artery with medication, but obviously there must be a way. Obviously, the arteries are blocked with what they call plaque, which, despite people saying that heart attacks don't nothing to do with cholesterol these days, I think they are, and it's all that's a substance that tends to get built up in the arteries. So they place a stent in one of them, and then they put me into intensive care for a while, and then about 4 or 5, 6 days later, they decided to go back in and have another look at the second artery. And in the second artery, when they were inside, they just decided to put another stent in. And of course, the stents, again, I'm not going to maybe give that, there's a lot of information online about what these stents do and how they go in, but basically, when they put them in, normally, they come included in like kind of an inflatable balloon, if you want to say it that way. So they go into the artery, which is a bit narrower due to the blockage. They go inside, and then the balloon, let's say, expands, and I don't think it really explodes, but it expands, and it it cleans the artery as much as it can. And then the metallic gauze stent, I think they're made of titanium, it stays there. So it kind of cleans the artery, and the stent then stays there to prevent, well, because I imagine the artery then is a bit weakened by the balloon kind of expanding, and so the stent keeps that opening open. Perhaps what we don't know, because the first stents weren't put in that long ago, maybe 15 or 20 years, we don't maybe know how long they will last. And of course, you don't know how long it will take before your body clogs them up again. But that's all to do with many factors that we'll talk about later. So I'm mindful of this video not going on too long. It's already 8.5 minutes. I haven't really said anything, but I guess I'll be making a few of them rather than just having 30 or 40 or 50 minutes long. So when they went back into my heart, they put another stent in, which I was quite happy about, because didn't seem much point going in there, seeing it's pretty well blocked, and then just coming out again. So it seemed, if you're in there, it's like if you're going to take the engine out of a car, you may as well change the clutch at that point, because everything's there, ready to do it. It's a lot more difficult to go back and do it later. So that's me. And like I say, if people want to, I'll talk about the heart attack in a bit more detail and the whole process. I was in Barcelona when I had the heart attack, a little bit outside Barcelona now. Yes, I was taken to hospital. It doesn't really matter which one at the moment. So the point of the video is after I left the hospital. I mean, before I even get there, I suppose. So I had this pain, and just in case you haven't had stents put in, but you've been told you're going to, or you need them, they have two options. And they can go in through the groin down there, or they can, and the first option will be, a scar here somewhere, they will go in through the vein here. In any case, not to scare you, but you're actually awake when they're inside your heart. And I'm not big with needles or blood or anything. I get quite... Spanish mareado, I get queasy, let's say, and it wasn't a nice experience. It's uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it hurts, not like a pain, but it's definitely uncomfortable. But yeah, the worst thing, which did hurt in an annoying way, is when they come out of the vein. They then put a valve, let's say, there to close it, because obviously they've just kind of made a hole there, and if they just leave it, then obviously not going to be very pleasant. Blood flowing everywhere. So they put in, and because the let's say that they don't just put a plaster on it; they put a valve there. Kind of a valve, or a get confused with Spanish and English, a tap-on. Anyway, they block it with this plastic little thing, and they put the tape around your arm, and it feels as if they're adding pressure to your arm. So I don't know. I have to ask an expert, but I don't know if they're actually. I mean, there can't be any pressure. This apparatus is, it's just a cap, really. But it certainly feels as if the blood is coming down and it kind of wants to go out and it can't. I can't explain it, but I certainly felt, and I think most people do, quite a bit of pressure in this region. And that is really uncomfortable. It was midnight. It was very late on both occasions when I was operated. I don't know why. The first case was an emergency. The second case, I don't know why they did it so late. Excuse me. But I couldn't sleep. It's not nice. And they have to leave that there for about 3 hours until maybe your blood pressure inside all goes back to normal, or whatever the reason. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I can probably find out the reasons for all these things. I can study and find that out. But the fact is, it's uncomfortable, and that's the most uncomfortable thing with the stent. And I was also told, so I still had a bit of pain here, which again was quite worrying, even after the operation. But the surgeon, I mean, it wasn't that technically really a surgery, but sort of a non-intrusive surgery. He told me that the pain will still be there, but in a few hours it will be gone. Now, of course, I don't even know why the pain was there. Obviously something to do with the blood flow or whatever, and you would think that once they unblock that, it's like if you have a blocked drain in the pipe leading from your kitchen sink, and you've got the water just isn't flowing. If you unblock it, the water flows and it's gone in 2 minutes. Gravity will fix the problem. However, with heart attacks, it wasn't like that, and it generally shouldn't be like that, I imagine, because he told me it wouldn't be. So it wasn't just something specific to me. But he was perfectly correct in the fact that in any case, this was far more uncomfortable. But in 2 or 3 hours, that pain did disappear. And the nurse at about 2 o'clock in the morning came and removed this plastic cap, and then I felt much better. And I can honestly say, from having literally an 8-hour heart attack, sounds very serious, but like I say, it was just really like a serious acid reflux pain. From having an 8-hour heart attack and feeling extremely uncomfortable the day before, even though the next day I'm in intensive care, so like in a ward from Dr. House, with no curtains but windows, you could press a button and the glass, like on a new Boeing aircraft or an Airbus, the glass becomes opaque, so you don't need the actual curtains, the glass changes shade. So very modern, and intensive care, so actually there with, I think there's one nurse per patient almost, or one per two maybe, one per three, whereas on a normal ward I guess it's like one per 15 or 20. So I'm in intensive care. I'm not allowed to move. I can't get up from the bed for any reason at all. But from the day after, so from the very day after, the next morning after the stents were placed, I can honestly say I felt perfect. I felt as if nothing had happened. There were no after effects. I felt, as you normally feel, so there was nothing for me wrong with me, and there was no reason in my head why I couldn't have gotten out of bed, gone to the bathroom myself, had a shower, gone walking, doing whatever I wanted to because I felt great. But obviously, you listen to what the doctors say. I was in intensive care for, intensive care sounds very serious, but in reality, like I say, I felt I was taking up a bed for no reason. There was a guy the other side of the ward that had a heart transplant, and this is long before COVID, so masks weren't being used, but to go in that room you had to wear a mask. So obviously I didn't want any risk of any kind of contamination. So, I felt I'm taking up a bed for no reason whatsoever here, but it's not my decision. So eventually I was moved on to the normal ward after about 4 or 5 days, I guess, and then they did another stent procedure, as I said. They went back in, and then I was released the next day. So I had about 4 or 5 days in intensive care. Then I had about 4 or 5 days in the normal ward, not intensive care, just normal. And at that point, I was allowed to walk and move around and whatever. I think I annoyed the head nurse, let's say, or the matron, whatever you want to call her, because like I said, I felt great. And I walked every day, up and down. It was actually, because of Barcelona, the weather was quite nice. It was March. It was March, 28th, something like that. And there was a big terrace on the hospital. Doctors came out, so I was walking around in my hospital nasty looking pyjamas. I probably walked almost an hour a day, because before the heart attack I would walk an hour a day. That was my daily exercise, at least an hour's walk a day. Now I've got dogs, so I have to do it anyway, wherever they are. So I was kind of told off for walking too much. I don't know whether it annoyed. Other people were walking kind of slowly up and down the ward and whatever. Of course, at being 45, I was one of, if not the youngest person there. The average age there was probably 60 or 70 or older. So maybe it made the other people feel a bit bad, or I don't know, I shouldn't like it. In any case, I kept on doing it to a certain extent. So I, even though I had to kind of take it easy because of what they were saying, not because of what I felt, but I felt I could do exercise. So of course, before we say too much more about what you should or shouldn't do, again I highlight this is just my case, and obviously your doctor should guide you, but nobody really came to see me to tell me anything. Okay, you can now do this, you can do this, you can't do this. There was no advice given to me whatsoever in Spain. I did see a doctor in the UK when I went back to the UK, and I was told, like I said, that I would be invited to go to this group and they'd be given assistance and whatever. I was never invited. Of course, I could have got back in touch and insisted, but because I went back to Spain, it didn't really matter. But in Spain, there didn't seem to be any aftercare. And one of the things people say with heart attacks and these things is you can suffer from depression. You know, whatever age you are, you've had a heart attack. I mean, a heart attack, well, I think I was told when I was in the hospital, you can check online, but I don't know, it was a third or 2/3. Obviously, a big difference between the two. But I think I'm kind of making well, I'm trying to remember, but I don't remember the exact statistic, but I think I was told something along the lines of someone that has a heart attack that's found between, and now I'm guessing the numbers, that's found in the first 10 or 20 minutes, they have an 80% chance of survival, something like that. Someone that isn't found for an hour, maybe they have a 50% chance of survival or get to hospital. Someone that isn't found for a couple of hours, they've got an 80% chance of not making it. I wasn't in the hospital until at least 2 hours, and like I say, they didn't diagnose a heart attack for 8 hours, but you know, my heart attack wasn't severe. I guess you could say any heart attack is severe, but it could have been a lot worse. And the other thing I was told, which I can only imagine is true, and it makes sense, is that the more serious and the longer the heart attack goes on for, the more damage is done to your heart. So that kind of worried me as well, because my heart attack went on for about 8 hours, and you think to yourself, oh, well, that's potentially quite a lot of damage. I had private healthcare in Spain, so I'm fortunate in the fact that I can go and have a checkup more or less whenever I want, and when they do the checkup, they will do once in a while they'll do a complete blood test, look at cholesterol and all the other things. Then they will also do the force exam, so they put you on a bicycle or a treadmill or whatever and see how your heart copes under stress or under when you're doing more exercise, when you're doing slightly more intense exercise. And they will also do the ultrasound. And I think it's the ultrasound that can really kind of tell. The only way to really examine the heart in detail is, to my knowledge, is an MRI, because then of course you're getting a complete 3D view. The ultrasound is the next best way, but I still don't think they can maybe see inside the arteries. I'm not even sure an MRI can do that either. It'd be interesting to find out. But the ultrasound seems to be give a lot more information than just an ECG, the electrocardiogram, which is when they put the little diodes, little electric things on you, and they will give the readout, the paper readout with your heart. The ultrasound, they can actually hear and see to a certain extent what's going on. So from the ultrasound, I was told, I think that my heart is working at 40, originally at about, again, I have to get the numbers, but I think about 43% capacity. And I was told that most people's hearts work at 49%. So I think around about, your heart generally, again, I need to check the exact percentages, and it's 50 or 70, but your heart's never working at 80 or 90%, not unless you're... so your heart's generally working at, let's say it's 43. Sorry, let's say it's about 49, 50%. Mine was at 43. And she showed me on the ultrasound the images that, well, this part of the heart that's greyed out a little bit, is actually dead. And of course that's not very nice to hear, that part of your heart is never going to work again. that's what the woman doing the exam told me, who's like a nurse that's been doing this for 20 years. However, after about 3 or 4 months of recovery and taking medication and whatever and having more exams, maybe it was 5 or 6 months, I had another ultrasound, and it showed my heart was working then at 49, it was 48%, let's say, so only maybe 1% less than the average person. So then the doctor, again, it doesn't seem to be an exact science, but I was led to believe that in that case my heart has recovered. So again, I wasn't going to argue with them. Well, the woman that did the exam here said that part of my heart is dead, so how did it come back? So maybe without wanting to be nasty, but I'm not sure that I'm not even sure that some of the experts maybe know as much as they could. And one recommendation is to ask as many questions as possible. However, in certain, when you're on the national health system and things like that, time is of the essence, and maybe you're not always given as much time as you might like to understand these things. And again, I can do a bit of research into these kind of things if people want me to. I kind of, wouldn't brush it under the carpet, but as now I feel fine, then I don't tend to worry about it. So I've spent 26 minutes and I haven't actually got to the part that I was going to get to at all. Shows how difficult it is to make YouTube videos. I will start about what I was going to talk about, which was, after all of this had happened, what can or should you, are you able to do? And there, I think the first thing to say is it depends on your general state of health, to a certain extent, before the heart attack. So if you're a big smoker, and the guy I was shared a room with in the ward that had open heart surgery, remember mine was non-intrusive, keyhole to some extent. He was a big smoker, and he'd had a double or a triple bypass, so where they take the vein out of your leg, out of his calf, and they replace basically the artery there with another vein altogether. So, and they cut there, and he looked like he'd had an autopsy done. Not very pleasant. Now, because he's a heavy smoker and has had open heart surgery, that's quite different to having stents put in. I mean, stents are, as I keep saying, non-intrusive. So, although you may well feel great, especially if you're in shape before the heart attack, I think it's common sense to take it easy for a couple of weeks. I can say I was definitely, a week after I left hospital, I was probably at that point walking, not super fast, but walking probably close to an hour a day, which is probably as much exercise as most people do in any case, unfortunately. I maybe wasn't going up steep hills or anything like that, but I was certainly walking. Whether you should be going running and going to the gym and things like that, I would, in my opinion, again, this is all on my opinion, I would say you wait at least a month or two before you do that and build up gradually. I think I had some furniture from IKEA delivered, and I made that, but not very heavy stuff or whatever, and I had a bit of help. So I would say if you feel fine in yourself, and if you're in pretty good shape afterwards, then my advice would be to feel confident but be sensible. I mean, I have read articles of people that didn't have heart attacks. Big difference if you had a heart attack and had stents put in than if you haven't had a heart attack and have stents put in. You can be sent into the hospital one day and come out the next day, if not the same day, but certainly the next day, with your stents. And I've seen people that do pretty long distance running, and within a few days they're back doing it. I would say, yeah, I'm sure they were fine. I would say you wait a couple of weeks. I'm not saying you do nothing. I'm saying you do exercise, but you build back up a little bit. At the end of the day, if you're on holiday, you're probably not going to be doing the same amount of exercise than you would when you're at home, you're on holiday with your family. So I would say you treat it like a holiday where you want to do a bit of exercise, but you also want to spend a bit of time with your family. In this case, you're spending a bit of time with yourself, you're taking care of yourself, and you're still doing a bit of exercise. I think it is, even for people that have stents put in, I mean, they've gone into your heart, they've opened things. Again, it sounds very kind of unscientific, but there's always the risk that some things have been disturbed. It's like, kind of compared to a car engine. You change something in the car engine or the electrical system, but to get there, you may well have, or the effect of that is that you've actually disturbed something else. And that just might need a bit of time to settle back down and to get back into position. So I would say before you go putting too much stress on the new part that you put in, just take it easy. However, in general, after a few weeks and after a month, there is absolutely no reason, from my experience, that you can't go back to doing absolutely everything that you were doing. I can also say, now I've gone past 30 minutes, I can also say that I've never been a big runner, for various reasons, but one of the reasons is I got too out of breath, I couldn't. Looking at it now, I think it was my heart. So I think I've had these almost blocked arteries for quite a while. It's just that it took a while to show. So in my particular case, I think for the first 20, 25, maybe 30 years of my life or more, and probably more, I maybe didn't take great, not bad care, but maybe my diet wasn't the best. There's a history of heart disease in the family anyway. I had high cholesterol towards or over the limit. I can't quite remember, and there's different countries use different scales, but whatever the maximum should be, I'm around there, a little bit under or a little bit over. Not life-threatening, but, and this is from someone that doesn't have a bad diet. I didn't eat lots of eggs, high cholesterol, although people say. But let's say I did eat worse in the first 30, 35 years of my life, but still not terrible. Many people eat far worse than me. But that, coupled with the history of heart disease in my family, wasn't great. Since I've been 21, I've gone to the gym nearly every day of my life, which involved 20 or 30 minutes of cardio, and then weights and whatever. At some point in my life, maybe when I was 40 or 38, or 35, between 35 and 40, I started maybe doing a bit more exercise, even more, and eating more sensibly. So far more salads, for example. So that healthier lifestyle, so basically my heart might have gone, in terms of worsening condition, arteries, may have gone up like that. And if I would have kept on going, I probably would have had a heart attack at 40. But because I started eating, hence more sensibly, it's just my opinion, it kind of tailed off and managed to stay there. But when I tried to run, even back from here, I couldn't feel my heart, but you just feel completely out of shape, let's say. After 5, 10, 15 minutes of running, that was it for me. Walking, no problem. And walking fast, again, no problem, but running wasn't good. And I think, this kind of tailing off, but still probably getting a bit worse, eventually it got to the point where I had a heart attack. And the point I was going to make was that after the stents, so let's say the arteries were at this level of blockage, now hopefully they're at this level of blockage all the way down here. If I go running now, and I did go running probably 3 or 4 or 5 months after the heart attack, out of curiosity more than anything else. While I might have had a pain in my shoulder, which might be kind of stress related or not having a good position, I didn't feel really, right now, excuse me, I didn't really feel out of breath. I felt as if I could run an awful lot further than I could before the heart attack. So it's, let's say, 5 years later than when I used to kind of try and run a little bit, so it should be more out of shape. But because of my arteries being unblocked, I believe that's the reason, I did feel in better shape, that I could run better. I still don't like running, so I'm not going to do it or try and prove the point, but I believe now I could do a 5 or 10 kilometre run, whereas before I don't think I could, or at least not without stopping and walking, running. Now I believe I could do it, but because I really don't enjoy it, I'm not going to prove the point. So that's my particular case. I haven't gone back to the gym and done heavy weights or whatever, and again, heavy weights are not recommended for your heart, because that does put a huge build-up all concentrated at once. So I think in order to do that, I think you really should speak to a doctor. I was certainly recommended not to do very strenuous exercise. I mean, for example, I can do pull-ups, I weigh whatever, just under 70 kilograms, so to pull my body up 10 times, 3 sets of 10, and to do bench presses and things like that. But I'm generally doing my own weight, and of course I'm not overweight. So if you're 60 kilos and or 80 kilos and you're going to try and bench press 120, then I would say maybe it's certainly worth speaking to a doctor, especially if you've had a heart attack. But even just having the stents, I mean, if you've had stents put in, it's because your arteries were getting blocked along the line, and even though you have the stents put in, I don't think it's quite like putting in a drain cleaner and just absolutely cleaning everything out and they're as good as new. I don't think that's the case. This catechismal, this thing that they put in that kind of explodes and creates the opening. It's only in that particular area. It's not going to explode the whole length of the artery. So there still could be some blockage there, and unless you want the doctor to go, which they won't, go back in every year or two and have another check, which, like I said, isn't a pleasant experience, then there's no real way of knowing the exact state of your arteries. So I'm going to close this now at 40 minutes. I'll answer any questions. I'll do more videos if enough people want them. I hope it kind of gives you a bit more insight. And like I say, I would like to think I was relatively healthy before, so it's directed maybe towards younger people, healthier people, because government advice, so the medication they put me on is the same as if I was 70 years old and smoked all my life. Maybe my dosage is slightly lower, but I don't have high blood pressure, and yet I'm taking medication for blood pressure. I'm taking aspirin, it's not technically aspirin, but the same kind of thing, 100 milligrams again every day for the rest of my life, whether I need it or not. But of course, it's if you have a heart attack, the doctors are recommended to give it to you. Automatically, you will be offered statins, and the statins, all the different types of statins, are for lowering your cholesterol. And actually, the day I had the heart attack, my cholesterol, because I've had an awful lot of salads and eat generally more healthy than before, my cholesterol was no longer at the high level. It was, if anything, no more than 2/3 of the way up towards the high level. So there's no reason I should be taking statins every day. But, like I said, you have a heart attack, these are the things that there's no kind of individual case study for this person. Well, the general advice is this, But because this person is in this category, not in this category, we can modify it. There's very little of that. It's just easier for them to just give you the same treatment as everybody else. I personally take my statins a little bit less often, so I don't take them every day. I take them once every 2 days perhaps. But again, I certainly don't recommend that. It's just what I do. And the only other medication I take now is an enalapril, which is for blood pressure. And again, I don't think my blood pressure is. I don't think I need it, but I take it anyway. And I take the aspirin. That's it. I also take omega-3 in this oil. I don't know if it's cod liver oil or whatever it is. Although I've seen a study a few months ago which says that there's absolutely doesn't seem to be any link to help your heart in reality. But because for years and years they said there was, then you keep taking it, and it's just one tablet a day anyway. Right then, I will sign off and upload this video.